guys. Okay, so now we're going to try the next three examples together. Completing the square to solve a quadratic. So we're going to follow step by step. The steps are on the side right here. So we're going to go through one through six together. So number one just says isolate the x terms, which means bring the 4 over. And to do that, we add 4 to both sides. And what we're going to do is we're going to add a square in to hold that spot. So we get x squared minus 14x plus a square equals 4. And then we always put plus a square on the other side. Now the next step is we're going to take b, which is negative 14. We're going to have it, which means divided by 2, and that's negative 7. Then we're going to take negative 7 and square it, and we get 49. Now that we're going to fill into the square. So we're going to put 49 here, 49 here, and then we're going to clean it up. So what that means is just rewrite it looking nice. So we get x squared minus 14x plus 49 equals 4 plus 49 is 53. Okay? Now we just made a perfect square trinomial on the left-hand side, which just means we could factor it. So I want you guys to pause the video and factor it. Now, did you guys notice that magic number that we halved over there, negative 7, was part of our factors? We got negative x minus 7 times x minus 7, and that's the beauty of completing the square, is that we're always going to get that number in our factors. That's the purpose of it. Now our next step is write as a perfect square trinomial, step 4, which is x minus 7 squared equals 53. And then our next step, step 5, is take the square root of both sides, which just means put that little symbol there. Pause the video, make sure you get this down. Now what we're going to do is we square root that to get the x minus 7 out of the square root sign. But we just have to remember it's a plus or a minus radical 53 on this side. All right, and then our last step is to write and solve both of those equations. What that means is just add 7 to both sides. So we get x equals 7 plus or minus radical 53. Now, when you go back to the instructions, it tells us to round our answer to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to erase this stuff here because I need room, and we're going to set it up. What we need to do is we need to box it off and do x equals 7 plus radical 53 and x equals 7 minus radical 53. We have 2 answers to this quadratic, and we have to get them both rounded to the nearest hundredth. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our calculator. Now I already plugged it in, so I'm going to go find it. And I'm going to do the plus 1 first. So it's x plus 7 here is plus radical 53 is 14.28. So rounded to the nearest hundredth is 14.28 because the 0 doesn't bump it up. So we get 14.28 here. And those two are the same. One's an approximation, one's an actual answer. And then my next step is we're going to now subtract it. And you're going to get 7 minus radical 53 is negative 0.28. Rounded to nearest hundredth is x equals 0.28 with a negative in front. Okay, so those are the quick steps on how to solve a quadratic using the completing the square method. Okay, pause the video, make sure you get it down. Now we're going on to number 2. Same idea. Got to isolate your x terms. You're going to add 24 to both sides. You put that square in to hold its spot. So you get x squared minus 12x plus a square equals 24 plus a square. Okay, now you're going to take your b, which is the negative 12. You're going to have it. Half of negative 12 is negative 6. You're going to square that now. Negative 6 squared is positive 36. You'll notice we're going to be using positive numbers when we're completing that square. And then we're going to clean it up. So we get x squared minus 12x plus 36 equals, and then 24 plus 36 gives you 60. And now we're going to factor that perfect square trinomial. Now, if you use our little shortcut before, you're going to get x minus 6, x minus 6. But if you don't know what I'm talking about, pause the video and please factor that trinomial. Did you get x minus 6 times x minus 6 when you factor the trinomial x squared minus 12x plus 36? Great. I'm going to bring down your equals 60. Now you're going to write it as a perfect square, which means I'm going to put x minus 6 to the second power because there's 2 of them. I'm going to bring my equals 60 down. And then your next step is going to be to take the square root of both sides. Pause the video. Make sure you get this down. And now the last thing you're going to do is bring out your x minus 6 here. And this becomes plus or minus radical 60. Now, again, we need to now write and solve the 2 equations. So in order to do that, I have to add 6 to both sides. And I get x equals 6 plus or minus radical 60. Now the question's asking us to round it to the nearest hundredth, so I have to separate both of them. I get x equals 6 plus radical 60 and x equals 6 minus radical 60. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug it into my calculator. And here's the plus one. It's 13.74596669. That means it rounds to 13.75. So x equals 13.75 for the first answer. And then for the second answer, when I plug it in, I get negative 1.75. So those are my 2 answers for this quadratic when solving by completing the square. Pause the video, make sure you get this down. And now on to our last one. We're going to look at number 3, which is x squared plus 12x minus 13. So again, we're going to add the 13 to both sides. And I'm going to put my square there to help me remind me I need to complete the square. So you put your 13 over there. Now you take your b, you have it. Oh, it's positive this time. Have 12, you get 6. 6 squared, you get 36. So that's going to go into our square because that's what we got when we squared it. Look at that. 36, 36. Okay, we're going to clean it up. We get x squared plus 12x plus 36 equals 36 plus 13 is 49. Okay. Next step, now we're going to factor it. Factor what's on the left. How do we factor x squared plus 12x plus 36? So pause the video and factor it. Now you should have noticed that you're going to have that magic number here, that's 6. Should have been x plus 6 times x plus 6 is equal to 49. Next step, write as a perfect square. We get x plus 6 squared equals 49. Step 5, take the square root of both sides. That brings the left-hand side out. And then we get plus or minus radical 49. And now our last step is to solve the equation. So I'm going to subtract 6 from both sides. And I'm going to get x equals negative 6 plus or minus radical 49. Okay? But again, I need to round it to the nearest hundredth, which means plug into my calculator. So I'm going to do x equals negative 6 plus radical 49 and x equals negative 6 minus radical 49. So plugging it into our calculator, if I do x plus 6, negative 6, I have it wrong. Negative 6 plus radical 49. You're going to get 1. So you get x equals 1. And then you're going to go back to your calculator. You're going to do the same thing. We're going to do negative 6 minus radical 49. and you're going to get negative 13. So you get x equals negative 13. So your two solutions here are going to be 1 and negative 13. They're not irrational, so you don't need to round them. But notice how we were able to factor this originally. I don't know if anybody noticed that, but that's factorable. And we could have done it by factoring, but you could also do it by completing the square. All right. So what you're going to do is you're going to try 4 on your own and send me a picture so I could see that you know what you're doing. All right. Good luck, guys.